Time Ranger sits at an interesting position in Sentai's history. It came at the turn of the new millennium, with the last batch of episodes being the first of the 21st century. It also marks the 25th anniversary of Sentai, although technically that wouldn't be celebrated until the following year. It infamously is known for having some of the lowest recorded toy sales in the franchise's history, which may come as a surprise to many as the show itself is rated highly. However, this will come as no surprise when you learn that Time Ranger was not made for kids. Well, kind of. Whilst children were still kept in mind, there would eventually end up being a greater focus on appealing to an older demographic. The decision to use time as a theme for the 2000 Sentai, or the Millennium Sentai as it was referred to by those working on the show at the time, had been made several years prior. Toy producer Jun Higasa has stated that he tried to break the mold in various different ways with the show, due to Sentai keeping a traditional format for all the shows prior. Some ways this was done was by having a female leader, and also making it so the Time Rangers never actually defeated the Monster of the Week, but instead had them arrested. The time theme had difficulties right from the get-go. Time is a concept that is hard for Sentai's main demographic, children, to fully understand, mainly due to the fact that they have not lived long enough to have any concept of the past, and possibly the future as well. Despite the Time Rangers time travelling mainly focusing on the future, there are scenes where the mecha are seen in the past, such as during the dinosaur age. Special effects director Hiroshi Busuda made this choice so it'd be more interesting and easier for children to understand, even with the much more complex scripts. Speaking of which, Yasuko Kobayashi served as main writer for Sentai for the second time, after the success of her previous work, Gingaman. The season featured more mature themes to appeal to the older audience. Aiming the season towards an older demographic would also be the goal with the opening theme song. The producers wanted to have an innovative theme song and proposed the use of a female vocalist to achieve this. The aim of the song was to get the children to be at the very least interested in the show. How would they achieve this? English. Whilst I really liked the opening and think that Kumi Sasaki killed it with the vocals, the opening did not bode well with viewers young and old. It stood out amongst the Sentai openings of the past, for better or for worse. There were complaints that the English lyrics were difficult to understand, so much so that the lyrics had to be subtitled from episodes 13 to 31. If the opening theme isn't getting the child hooked, which is what they initially aimed for, then they're not going to watch that show, and if the children aren't watching the show, they aren't seeing those toys in action and therefore will not want to buy them. Time Ranger had better ratings than the previous show Go-Go 5, and gained popularity amongst the older generation, which was the initial aim after all. However, on the other hand, the appeal to children was low, resulting in some of the lowest toy sale numbers in the franchise's 48-year-long history. And it's not entirely hard to see why. There were far fewer toys this year, and with fewer children in the target demo watching, less toys were going out. And with Kamen Rider seeing its Heisei revival, a lot of kids were turning their attention to this new hero, whether it was because the theme song was easier to sing, or because it was just an easier show to understand. Time Ranger ultimately paid the price with its unique goal to aim to appeal to a demographic other than the main one, which had been watching since the very beginning. It is unlikely Toei would ever allow something like Time Ranger to happen again. They sort of tried with Go Busters, but the results were pretty similar there too. The following year gave us Gao Ranger, and it was a massive hit with kids at the time, and those toys sold incredibly well. It's not entirely hard to see the effect Gao Ranger had on Sentai in the decades following. You know, with all the toys. But one can wonder what Sentai would be like today, had Time Ranger been a success.